We are waiting for the microphone to be on. Çeviride şu anda hiç ses yok. Hiçbir ses yok. Sıfır. Ses yok. Komple kapandı. Ses yok. We have gathered to discuss here today the recovery after the first year of the affairs we had in Syria. For the first session of our agenda today, I would like to kindly ask the General Coordinator of our foundation, Nebi, to the floor. His Excellency Minister, valuable guests, we have come to the first year and anniversary of the Syrian people being freed from the regime of Assad. And now we have gathered under this event where we are discussing of recovery and reconstruction. The victory marked in 8th of December 2024 is not only the closing of a very long stage for Syria, but it's also the start of a hope and reconstruction and rebuilding phase. The 13 years behind have been will remain in the history and memory of Syrian people of a great resistance and suffering. Today we need to be discussing the path of the future. In this sense, particularly considering the last 1 year, we can just say that we have 4 pillars. First one is when we look at it from safe security point of view, although the field has many difficulties, many people in many parts of the country are getting back to normal and they are trying very hard to do so. Secondly is that mikrofonu ağzına yaklaştırabilir miyiz? It's about how the political restructuring will be planned and implemented, how the local structure will be rebuilt. Thirdly, when we look at the economic and societal reconstruction, Syria is facing a significant devastation and destruction. On the other hand, both within Syria and outside of Syria, those Syrians living both within and outside is of course contributing to the... Thank you very much for the microphone support. The fourth critical area we need to be highlighting here is that Syria's foreign policy performance and its return back to international arena. In the last 1 year, we have left behind. The sanctions against Syria are slowly being removed, and the steps taken towards that direction is critical for the country to rebuild and to build safe and connect and sound relations with the international counterparts. On another note, Syria to rebuild its bilateral relations and to increase its diplomacy traffic at the regional and international level are also important momentums that are making the normalization faster for Syria. We need to remind how Turkey has contributed and supported Syria during this time. The visionary leadership set by our president and very intensive diplomatic contacts and engagement of our minister, as well as the support we have provided through humanitarian aid, and all of our institutions being in an integrated strategy and act in a well coordination has helped Syria and multiplied and magnified the effect of Syria's return to international arena. Multilateral engagements in the region, as well as dialogue built under international frameworks, as well as diplomatic support, are all the elements building the Syria's new foreign policy. Valuable eh, audience and ladies and gentlemen, today in the Middle East, we're talking about the regional and security architecture as well as a geopolitical stage and arena being reshaped. The energy lines, the commercial corridors, as well as defense collaborations and the new discussions of new alliances, as well as crisis management mechanisms are all occupying our agenda simultaneously. Looking at this issue from this perspective, in the Middle East, a stable and consistent order to remain, state capacities have to build, and regional economic integration should be deepened, as well as a collective and institutional safety mechanism should be vital. This is the structure we are in need in the region. This is exactly why Syria is not just a country file. It is in the center of architecture of regional security, and it's one of the most critical topics of geopolitical restructuring. Syria, with becoming stabilized and being a part of regional integration and being re-engaged with economic and political networks, will speed up the normalization within the country and will also enable a more predictable order to take place in the Middle East. Within this framework, a sustainable political order in Syria and its establishment is also raising significant challenges. One of them is Israel's destructive and unstabilizing policies that it is conducting in the Syrian territory. Israel's security-focused, single-sided, aggressive behavior is threatening the integrity of the land and territory of Syria as well as its sovereignty. The genocide it has caused in Gaza, as well as it is oppression and aggression towards attacking the neighboring territories, is a threat not only for Syria but to overall overarching regional security. So when we are discussing the future of Syria, we need to consider Israel factor as a military factor, political factor, and a regional factor. Turkey has been raising for a long time. The only way to overcome this kind of challenges is not through the shortened and narrow calculations of crisis. It should be wider and handled in approach in a wider sense of a regional approach. Without activating all necessary mechanisms, building a permanent order in Syria would not be possible. At this very point, Turkey's approach is a comprehensive, inclusive, and a cooperative security approach. This approach will make regional ownership central. The crisis will not be referred to the outside of the region, but the countries of the region, the building elements of the region will take a shared responsibility. And Turkey's vision is to have an inclusive political order within Syria and outside Syria, having a cooperative regional architecture which is growing stronger. Valuable guests, Turkey's approach to Syria is shaped around three principles, fundamental principles. The first one is that the Syria's territorial integrity as well as policy and it is nation sovereignty to be supported by Turkey instead of fragmenting geographies. A whole of Syria is the goal of Turkey. Secondly, terrorist organizations, particularly PKK and YPG and Daesh and all the other derivatives will not be the future of Syria. and we are committed for this. The peace in Syria does not interpret into an area where the terrorist organizations are weakened but completely eliminated. Turkey is not only for itself but for also the whole region has a vision to eliminate all forms of terror. So Syria, in this sense, is going to be playing a leading role in building and creating this terror-free territory. The third one is a dignity life for dignified life for the Syrian people, encouraging voluntary return and contribution to recovery and reconstruction. Turkey commits for these efforts, where Syrians can voluntarily return to their country with a societal peace in the center. Today, all the way from migration management to the border security, from humanitarian aid to local development projects, Turkey is contributing in a tangible manner and concretely to recovery of Syria. This is beyond being a foreign policy choice. It is about the geographical proximity and historical links we have, as well as its regional ownership and, of course, humanitarian responsibility. Well, dear guests, of course, the path ahead is not an easy one. Today, in comparison to 10 years earlier, we have more experience, institutional knowledge, and a stronger cooperation. So when we are discussing this new phase in Syria, we will not be only highlighting how challenging it is, but we need to remind ourselves how possible it is as well. We as SETA are considering all of these positive dynamics and see the future of Syria not only enshrined around the crisis, but also with regards to opportunities. Since we are talking about the first year, political say we have organized numerous workshops, and these workshops touched upon the restructuring of the security sector of Turkey, their foreign policy tendencies, economic recovery strategies, infrastructure investments, as well as institutional structure and societal peace. These were all issues and topics we have elaborated within SETA. With all the analysis we have published, we have been on one hand photographing the past year and also focusing on concrete steps for the future. Through those reports, analysis, panels, and workshops we organize, we aim to produce information and thus contribute to restructuring and recovery of Syria, and also present some applicable and implementable options for the policymakers. So we as SETA will continue to commit to this regional ownership and continue to support Syria, Gaza, Palestine, Lebanon, and all other challenges we are facing, as well as challenges we are facing as a part of our regional restructuring efforts. Today's gathering is also another important piece of this effort and struggle. The strategic perspective of our valuable Excellency Minister, as well as the contribution of the experts from the Syria and the interaction between academia and the policymakers is going to give us a more holistic lens and look into the Syrian file in the near future. While I'm wrapping up my words, I will kindly and very deeply thank our Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Hakan Fidan, for sparing time, although he has been very busy, and attend to our event. I would like to thank all of the panelists who will be on the stage today and who helped organizing and making this event possible. Welcome to our gathering.
We would like to thank dear Nebi Mish for this speech. After the opening remarks, now we would like to invite His Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs Hakan Fidan is kindly invited to floor. Dear participants, professors, and managers of SETA Foundations, staff of SETA Foundations, I would like to extend my greetings first of all, and we would like to thank the administration of SETA to Professor Nebi for organizing such a meaningful event in the anniversary of this important event, and the policy, international relations, security in our state life, government life, political life, all of the important steps have been talked by your side for years, and I've been closely following your works and studies in this regard, and the bureaucracy, administration, decision makers, practitioners, uh, acting with the correct information and the correct analysis is very important. Turkey is a large country. We have a lot of opportunities, problems, challenges, and also the resources that are available. And we need to overcome all of these aspects with a common sense. And for this purpose, we need qualified analysis and information. Sometimes the public information on its own might be focusing on only one side. And that's why the independent information, impartial information is always important in this regard. And to be able to provide different perspective is very important too. In all the institutions that I work, in all the aspects that I work, I always highlighted the importance of the qualified information. It gives you the quick results. I have seen and witnessed that for many different times. And the only thing that I can tell you is maybe there will be more people like you because we need more mind than ever and we need to have this common sense. Thank you very much for your studies in this regard, and I also have seen your contributions in different fields too, especially in the anniversary of the Syria. Again, thank you very much for this study too. It's quite a meaningful study, to be honest, because it is quite dynamic and intense 15 years. And what happened there? How did it happen? What we've been through, what we've been witnessed, what are the lessons to be taken, what should be our next path was have to be analyzed actually, and different perspectives should be presented. It is really important for us too. As the practitioners, we always have a very busy schedule, as you may imagine, from one problem to another, from one work to another. We have a very active and dynamic work, but someone also think thoroughly and they need to have a more holistic approach. I always have these kinds of colleagues around me too, the analytic studies and also the informations, our internal analysis from different institutions, different analysis, all of them are important pieces to reach out to a holistic picture actually. Therefore, I find these kinds of works quite meaningful and I would like to wish you the best and I would like to thank you a lot. In the opening remark, Professor Nebi already talked about that and conceptually and analytically he explained my speech. When I say these words, of course, it is the official uh, it will be an official aspect. That's why I would like to draw some subjects to your attention once again. It's an opening remark. We don't have Q&A session in my understanding. Maybe I can ask this question to myself and I will be answering them on for you. So why Syria is very important? Of course, I will be showing the perspective of Turkey. Syria belongs to Syrian people. And of course, when we get together with our addressees, we've been struggling with our stakeholders and I know what it means to them. But what does Syria mean for Turkey? What's been through in our lives in the previous years? I also would like to express them in my time. Dear colleagues, as you may know it well, Turkey and Syria in the same emperorship, Seljuk Ottoman emperorships, again, in culturally, geographically, in every different item, they are complementary to each other, just like Iraq. These historical connections, and after the foundation of Turkish Republic, after the foundation of Syria, there have been some interruptions, but the social, geographical, historical realities cannot be changed. In your trade, you always have to have this connectivity with Syria. When it is about cross borders, again, Syria will be right there. So historically, culturally, commercially, strategically, or in terms of security, or in terms of the relations of the neighborhoods, the Syria is of great importance. And of course, during the Arabic Spring time, in the beginning of 2010s, and there has been a movement in the Arabic geography, and our friends are sure discussing these. What are the pros or cons of this Arabic Spring? And of course, Syria has been through some things too. And in terms of updating themselves, some Arabic managements or the administrations had difficult times to update themselves, and they faced problems with their people. But the process started in Syria and continued for years. And there was Assad centers, minor, and the pressurizing section caused this process at the very first stage. Of course, first, the international society of the Western countries showed reaction to that. Of course, the Turkey always stand by the Syrian people, the innocent and the pressurized people, oppressed people. And as you may know it well, His Excellency President always had this understanding, and the reason why he is the president is that always reflecting the idea of Turkish people. But it is not only for Turkey, it is an overall stand for overall world. That's why always elected by the public, continued for, with, and on behalf of public. This is the biggest value that we have that produced so far, I guess. And our reflex in this regard is we always stand with our oppressed friends in Syria, and we have applied an open door policy for Syrian people. The people came to Turkey, and we shared our bread, our work, our homes with them. This is a unique movement of solidarity. We were criticized a lot for that. We had to pay some political costs along with that too. But always I say that having values, having principles comes with some costs. And sometimes you have to pay for it to be able to continue accurately and consistently. As of the beginning of His Excellency President presidency period, uh, both abroad or in several environments, when people talk about Syria combating against migration, when the aspects regarding migration are there, the Turkey has become a case for people to look up. It's a model now. And of course, working together with them is like a historical responsibility for us. And being together, standing with Syrian people and supporting them, the people who witnessed that closely know it way better. And many of our partners started to work with us in this regard. And some after a while, they stopped working with us with several reasons. This is another subject because in the public regime in Syria, the imperialist country is in Syria, and some supporters, some powers supporting them. We have seen that it is not in line with their benefits. So, by using the name of ISIL, again, they told that we don't prefer to stand with public, we will be working with PKK, they said. And as you may know it well, the PKK didn't have any conflict with the current regime at that time I'm mentioning. Russia, Iran, and the Assad regime, they had a partnership somehow. Right now, they started to work against each other, but at that time they had an indirect partnership with the participation of United States too. So, of course, in Syria, some problems have become more chronicle and they were extended even more, but it didn't have any impact on our side. And Qatar were always with us in this regard too. So they were coming from a rather different geography, but we never changed our path. We always continue to provide our support and we always stand with public and people. This was a historical mission of ours. So what have we done? Not to continue with the conflict, not to have more destruction, not to have any more displacements. We started Astana process with Russia. And this aspect should be addressed very well, and the supporting powers should come together and with a certain understanding to stop the conflicts. It have to be seeing that as a practice should be closely reviewed, I guess. During that time, the Astana process, especially the oppositions in the northern area, to create a space and not to go with the space and to reduce the tensions and not to continue with the southern parts, there was a de facto situation along with the Astana process. Of course, His Excellency President and His Excellency Putin had a different diplomacy. It is of great importance too, as you may know it well. I was in the National Intelligence Institution and I witnessed these developments closely, the discussions and the decisions that are made, and also having a consensus not to have any more conflicts were really important. If we couldn't have this diplomatic skill in the northern part, 5 million Syrian sisters and brothers had to come to Turkey along with that because the Russian, Iranian military powers could continue towards the north. So at that time, we put some military and economic and also including the solidarity. All of them have to be in some certain coordination and they have to be balanced. And the problematic area should be escaped to become even bigger. This is actually a very important situation, and it continued for a while, for a long while. And we have seen this case in Syria. Yes, there is a war in Syria, but even if we can stop it as a ceasefire, at least, this government uh, will see the desperate situation they are in. I always told that to the Syrian governments too. The conflict wouldn't make you or give you any gains for short term because there is long term because you lost half of your population just for the security of the regime. They sent everyone out and they wanted them to leave and they also put them in the prison and there is also torture and like the extinction process. Almost what Netanyahu does to Gaza people, the similar thing was done from Assad to the Syrian people.
Now, considering that such wide-scale oppression and us standing against this is only natural. There's nothing more natural than standing against it. Well, from time to time, some actors are coming with political criticism without seeing this dimension, and I have difficulty in understanding on which grounds they do criticize our actions. There is a major oppression, and we need to stand against it. It is a historical movement and historical test we were going through. And once we ended the war, the regime, as I have already mentioned, was going through an adrenaline pumped due to the conflict. And once the conflict was over, the adrenaline levels dropped down and they saw the damage they have received. There is no population, there is no economic resources, there is no infrastructure. So slowly, they just died. That was a matter of time only. The Russians and Iranians, yes, they did offer some economical support for a while, but if you are talking about an economy without its own organs and systems in place, it wouldn't last long. The Russia was already going through some local affairs. You know that they have the Ukrainian conflict which had just started. Iran is also facing significant sanctions and means that none of the advices, recommendations coming from Iran or Russia would not meet with an action. They neither had the will or means to exercise those. So in the end, they came to an hopeless end. And all the rational actors were already, let's say indirectly, accepting that reality, which led us to December 8 last year. Well, December the 8th is, of course, an historical moment. So this regime, which was already death officially announced it is ending. So it was a new day, new hope, new start for the people of Syria. Well, of course, this doesn't necessarily mean all problems are sorted in Syria at once. On the opposite, a new bundle of problems and challenges came along with a new start and a growth and a new life story. We all found ourselves within it. And while we were approaching to that date, we were all aware of what was coming next. As of December the 8th, everyone had a confusion on what to do now, be it the other regional countries, Europe. So how should your discourse be? Which formula would be? Which policy would be? It was kind of like one of these political crossroads where whatever the discourses will shape the rest of the following discourse and the policies. So I have seen, particularly among our Arab brothers, that I was expecting, by the way, them to be in a confusion, and the contact group that we have established for Palestine, as well as the solidarity we have created, has given us space for practice and trust. Using this as an opportunity, I reached out to my colleagues and said, please do not, my counterparts, and said, let's don't react immediately. Let's first come together, decide on what to ask from this new management and administration, and then act accordingly. Before the Arab League was gathered, we had this small group of counterparts joining and discussing on the very first week of the 8th of December. And I think it was Cairo or Jordan that we gathered. Yeah, it was first Cairo, then Jordan. Second was in Jordan. And we gathered in Jordan, excuse me, Cairo, and I addressed my counterparts. Other countries also joined us, not only the regional counterparts. I said, Forget about Amishara and his circle. In Syria, whichever the regime is, whatever regime comes now, what will we be asking? Regardless of those names we have before us at the moment, we as neighboring states, as the international community, what should we jointly ask for? First, not to be a threat for their neighbors and region. Okay, noted. Secondly, not to be involved and leverage any terrorist organizations, not to be in contact and cooperation with any terrorist organizations. Third, no, not a partitioning agenda, but an agenda of bringing together the overall Syria must be their priority. Okay, well noted. And fourth, all the minorities, people, societal segments should be accepted, free of torture, oppression, and pressure. Perfect. Okay, well noted. So we said, okay, let's we elaborate and discuss those with the standing regime. If they accept, we move forward. If not, we do, yes, adopt an attitude towards it. As it's been said in the speaking remarks before, and it's all about the regional ownership. As you recall, the previous written model was aligned with the then dominant idea of the region. Either you dominate again or be dominated. No cooperation or collaboration was prescribed. So we truly believe that is the most primitive way to dominate or to be dominated. We need a new understanding of solidarity, collaboration, and risks have to be shared, and we sort out those risks together. And if there are any interests to be collected, we can all jointly enjoy it. So the old style, this constant need for being the dominator is back in the rusty pages of history books. Well, no matter how many other countries tried it, we have seen that it never ended well for those who are trying for it. So we have to have our lessons learned. And without those lessons learned, adopting the old ways would be a great loss. This is another, by the way, discussion topic about strategy. When we come to the strategy for Syria, we had this principle of regional ownership in the first round. And also, when we engage with the international society and in the community, meeting with the European counterparts and the American ones, we said the same thing. We did the same. What do you want? This and that. Okay, these are what we are wanting. Let's do. Let's put them on a paper and reach out to them and say, this is what we want from you. And I know those people, by the way, although they have been described differently for long years, or they have been kind of like satanized, let's say, because of other political aims. It doesn't necessarily mean this is what they were, and they proved it right, honestly. And we approached them with our desires, let's say, for Syria. And this was a very good starting point. The new administration in Syria, setting up in cooperation with the international community and other regional figures, has been protecting them against reactions. And what is next? There are some couple of important issues now. The country has its opportunities and risks, that's true. But we are all aware and have experienced that when you are in chaos, conflict, war, and disorder, be Syria or any other country, you will end up with a couple of things. First of all, you become a physical security threat. You become one. Secondly, you become host of terrorist organizations, and also because of the conflicts, millions of people end up being displaced and travel to other destinations as refugees. And when they do arrive, they do also trigger numerous political fault lines. We have seen it in Europe. So this 13 years of chaos before 8th of December has taught the world a lot of lessons. Syria and the lack of an administration in Syria that would appeal to its own society and societal problems led to those 13 years. So the opposite would get, of course, the support from the international arena, which we have seen with the existing one and which we have all accepted with supportive hands to no longer face refugee crisis or terror being born from the territory of Syria and aiming to wrest. So when we ask ourselves what are the challenges, of course, one of the primary is the existing displaced brothers and sisters returning eventually back to Syria and supporting economic and social life of Syria. We ourselves has our uh, migration policy for us. The only way to return is voluntary and a dignified return. No, we don't have any aim of forcing some certain numbers of returns. No, the aim is to be voluntary in a dignified way, so they can altogether revitalize the economy in Syria, repair their physical infrastructures, and this process had to start as of 8th of December last year because from the banking and financial point of view, you are already kicked out of the international system. You don't exist as a logistics hub. No country is flying to you. There's no transportation in place. So, which means that you're in extreme deprivation at the bottom. And when you're at the bottom, the only way is up. That's how you start. First, you will just make your public institutions stand back again, and people are expecting services from you. Offer them those services, provide them those services, and there needs to be a solidarity. As you know, they had this declaration of a constitution. Under those circumstances, with some reason, of course, it was accepted. There are some critiques with regards to that one, but there are still ongoing discussions, and they had the elections for the People's Assembly. Of course, this was an election where the people was involved indirectly, but in this transition process, they have this now the constitutional framework and also the political actors which will be in the stage. And now it is certain we know those. And as it is in the international literature, I would like to share with you that the overall Syria's worth was at by 2024, 1.4 billion dollars during the last times of Assad. And also according to literature and many studies that have been carried out, the repair of the infrastructure and meeting the basic needs and fundamental needs of country and to normalize the life, the financial amount that is necessary is calculated to be $216 billion, more or less. But we see that it was time to restart life and take the first steps. Nowadays, some investors are coming back to the country. The banking system has to be revitalized as well as telecommunication, health systems. All of them have to come back to our agenda. We need to be fast. And the problem is that you don't have one single problem. You have the same similar severity and magnitude of problem in the many sectors. And you have to take numerous actions simultaneously. We as Turkey see that in the absence of an external intervention, The political framework that was set forward, if it would continue by the regional counterparts as well as the international community, the problems that are within the country is showing a trend towards repairing itself and improving. The last year shows us in every sector and field small steps are taken and they are turning into bigger ones.
Again, this is really important. And what are the challenges? We have seen the economic problems. And in the political fields, there are some economic, politic aspect, there are some problems too. As you know, there is a separated, fragmented situation in Syria, and the opposition groups have become the governing bodies. And of course, we have provided our knowledge to them, and having one single army would be very important to be able to receive external support and to have a more systematic structure. All the groups that join to resistance should be, as a whole, they should declare that they are subjected to the Nebi government. This is a very good start. And this is a start that we promoted too. And this is a picture where the other countries would like to see it too. Because when there are different armed groups and when they have different agendas and when they are working for different purposes, you cannot provide the fundamental services and nobody would invest in your country. And even if those are there, would escape. And that's why unionization of these armed groups and acting together was really important. But there were three main problematic fields. First, the previous regime was constituted of the Syri brothers and the situation they are in right now. And again, we shared it with our Syrian counterparts too. And they always expect that in the past there has been oppressions towards the majority of the society and there might be a revenge case. So there might be some provocations, and with the influence of the provocations there might be a boom. And to preventing them was really important actually. And we have realized that international society and the regional actors, after they accept working with the new regional system, the actors that are expecting to see chaos within the country were disappointed. And we have seen that the chaos prevention mechanisms entered into force. In last year, for example, there have been some problems. And of course, on the social fault lines and the previous unfortunate experiences showed that there might be a revenge taking risk. But the government should see itself as government and they should protect their citizens. And they should have an equal approach to all the parties. So the torturers or the oppressors should be punished individually. And this was an important test for the country too. And I can say that there is a mature structure and a good approach in this regard. But of course, there have been some lackings in the practicing. And right now we see that the relevant corrections are made in this regard too. And of course, since the beginning, combating against ISIL, there have been the invading party YPG, who utilize the oil resources of the country. And right now, whether they're going to be in whether they will settle with the government or not is one of the problems we have. In 10th of March, there has been an agreement with YPG and between Damascus government. And in terms of implementation of it, a schedule was also shared. But so far, we haven't seen any concrete steps in this regard because of the Doha Forum. Sachir Bani, I also talked to him too, and I was informed that there haven't been such good progresses so far. And as Turkey, to continue to work in this process, provide solutions to these problems with peace. Preventing conflicts won't be advantageous for anyone. This is our understanding, and that's what we always emphasize. So, diplomatic dialogues should be conducted. YPG should realize that in no country there could be two armed groups. And the armed groups that you have in your country should be subjected to the Syrian military forces. Direct or indirect, and these instabilities will be there. If you don't have it, economy, stability, reliability won't be there. There will always be a risk of conflict, and always there will be an open wound, open for intervention. This is important for well-being of Kurdish people, Zerdi people, all the different ethnic backgrounds. Well-being, it is really important, but the oppression of one ethnic will be to another one. If it continues, it will be an updated version of the previous government understanding. We we don't divide. We won't divide the country like we are bringing feudalism, or we are not going to oppress anyone. We don't. We are not going to push them to be armed. So it should be everyone equal, and the prosperity and well-being should be there. Turkey is doing that. EU countries are doing that. Many countries in the world are doing that. This is possible in Syria too, and we have to do it in Syria. Therefore, we've been closely monitoring that. I know that there are a lot of questions. What are you going to do? What about the armed groups there, again, in the YPG, PKK, equal what could be the measures that can be taken. There are a lot of aspects regarding that, but again, throughout the process, we declare some of aspects, and some of aspects are shared by us clearly and directly. Our understanding is this is Syria's own. There were a field between Syria and YPG, but I always say that to ensure the stability, this integration should be realized as soon as possible. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What's the elephant in the room? So in Laskiya side, may got protected, but the problem of Musaibi and Alevi people, and also YPG related aspects, given the fact that the reality in Turkey, up to a certain point, the government in Syria has some strategical rationality. As long as they continue with it, and as long as we have the cooperation, we can manage these problems. But the biggest problem is the invasive area understanding of Israel, and they also see Syria as another objective. Unfortunately, the war started in Gaza by Netanyahu, will continue in different forms, and they are looking for new grounds in the region. Impacts and the effects are also shown in the area too, and there is a huge risk for stability. We always have this open criticism. Um, Israel should not build its safety over the feeling of unsafety of the others. It should be a system where everybody feels safe. This relation of trust should be established. And again, when it comes to, they should give up on their stance. They should change their approach. They should stop the genocide in Gaza. And this agreed peace agreement should immediately be effective, and to be able to provide solutions to these problems, the logical and the reasonable subjects should be discussed. One-sided power used, unconditional, limitless support of United States can give you some grant. But for everything where you think you will be gaining new grants can create you or give you new threat areas too. The strategy of Netanyahu, I always shared that with Western people too. Tactically, it is successful, but the strategical perspective, policy is taking Israel and Israeli people towards an actually gap, a cliff, which is very dangerous for them. And of course, in the land operations, invasion operations that are continuing, the air operations towards Syria and the military elements and towards the Syrian government bodies, there were some assaults too. And with the drones, intelligence activities 24/7, and again the violation of air field of Syria by Israel is showing us the will to continue this chaos. And we Americans have a close dialogue in this regard, and there is a one good party. The American government, President Trump, we would like to thank him. He thinks that they should give a chance to Syrian government to ensure the stability of the area. It could be an important step. This is the understanding of the new government, and it is an important attitude actually, because the country in the region has an important relations with the America. Of course, we should not ignore this fact. And we hope that, again, the Israel, in terms of America and Syria side, this offer will hopefully be agreed. As I previously expressed, everybody should live in a region where everybody live peacefully. Otherwise, all the countries will be in chaos, and ensuring that you feel secured is not acceptable, and it is not something that we can accept too. We don't want to see Syria in chaos once again. As Turkey, we cannot tolerate that. As you may know it well, in Iraq and Syria, in all the events that happened in the last 25, 30 years, cost Turkey a lot. And they had important costs for Syria and Iraq, of course, but we also paid for a lot of things. And based on the lessons learned, that's how we approach to manage or address the chaos in Syria. We also have other important lessons learned, which is another topic of discussion in this regard too. But in the international society, for United States and for the regional countries, just like in Palestine, there is one single message. Stop or give up your invasion attacks towards Syria. If you have a problem, discuss and find a settlement area. That's the message that is given right now. If we can manage this process well, again, I think that the other risks in Syria can also be managed, addressed. As Turkey, I don't see there are big problems. Of course, there are some problematic areas. There are some political, economic, social, combating against terror. There will be a lot of problems, but as Turkey, if we keep up with our stance, and if we continue with the same policies, I think that Syria will have an important recovery in many different aspects and fields, and I think that it will be a good space for them. It will be a plus value for the region, for us, for Syrian people, for Arabic world, for Islam world, for all humanity, and for the Middle East too.
Therefore, all the hard work that has been carried out and performed in the last 1 year is of critical importance to pave the way for it. On the first anniversary of the change in Syria, I would like to repeat, under the leadership of our Excellency President, we have stood on the right side of the history, and we are so proud of it. And on the first day of the revolution, I told all my colleagues, we are just starting now. Nothing is solved, nothing is finished. There is more challenges, there is more need for a systematic approach to move forward. And all of our state bodies, civil society organizations, our political figures, political parties, everyone more or less do agree and will work in a harmony with great synchronization, and everyone is wondering what can we do, what else can we do, in how shortly we can do it. And we, as you know, Turkish people are a little bit impatient. When we think something is good, we want it to move forward as quickly as possible. That's also good. So in a way we are positively pushing, and if not, if we fail, we may get dismotivated, but disappointed, but not dismotivated. Allow me to once again repeat that with regards to Syria, there is a lot to talk, particularly in terms of their fight. And but due to time, oh, okay, I have also taken quite a lot of time. How long has it been? Okay, still we are at an optimum level of time that I have spent on the stage. Better leave it here. I would like to once again deeply thank you for your invitation, for you people gathering also here under this event. And we as a country and state always need your academic and analytical research and studies. So I would like to wish success to all of the panelists of today and thank them for their hard work. I only regret that I won't be able to stay with you here to hear you in detail, because being in my position means that I have to jump from one gathering to another. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for hearing you with patience. We would like to thank our Excellency Minister for his valuable opening remarks. Now, after a short break, our program will continue with our first panel session.